A group of 32 civil society organizations is writing to the French President Emmanuel Macron, calling on him to change the stance toward the indigenous Kanak people of New Caledonia. The group said it strongly supports the call by the FLNKS and other pro-independence groups that only a non-violence response to the crisis would lead to a viable solution. And it says President Macron must heed the call for an eminent persons group to ensure the current crisis is resolved peacefully and impartiality is restored to the decolonization process. Don Wiseman spoke with Joey Tau of PANG, the Pacific Network on Globalization, which is one of the civil society bodies involved.
Don, just want to thank you for this opportunity, but also it is to really highlight France's, in this case, the Macron administration's inability of fulfilling the Nouméa Accord. In our statements, in our numerous statements, and you would have seen statements from around the region, there have been numerous events or incidents that have led to where Kanaki New Caledonia is at in its present state, with the Kanaks themselves not happy with where they've headed to in terms of negotiating a pathway with Paris. So you understand the referendums, the 3 votes went ahead, or rather the 3rd vote went ahead during a time when the world was going through a global pandemic. And the Kanaks have clearly, prior to the 3rd referendum, have called on Paris to halt, but yet France went ahead and imposed the 3rd referendum. Thus, the Kanaks boycotted the 3rd referendum. All of these have just led up to where the current tension is right now. The recent electoral proposal by France is a slap for Kanaks who have been negotiating, trying to find a pathway. So in general, the concern that Pacific regional NGOs and civil societies, not only in the Pacific, but at the national level in the Pacific, are concerned about France's ongoing attempt to administer Kanaki New Caledonia, but its inability to fulfill the Nouméa Accord.
In terms of stopping the violence and opening the dialogue, the problem, I suppose, a lot of people in New Caledonia and the French government itself might argue is that Kanaks have been heavily involved in quite a lot of the violence that's gone down in the last few weeks. So how do you square that?
It has been growing. It has been a growing tension, Don. But this is not to ignore the growing military presence and the security personnel buildup. You had roughly about 3,000 military personnel or security personnel deployed in Nouméa or in Kanaki within 2 weeks. I think...
Yes, but businesses were being burned down, houses were being burned down.
Well, as regional civil societies, we condone all forms of violence, and thus we have been calling for peaceful means of restoring peace talks. But this is not to ignore the fact that there is growing military buildup. The ongoing military buildup needs to be also carefully looked at as it continues to instigate tension on ground, limiting people, limiting the indigenous people's movements. And it just brings you back to, the similar riots that had been before New Caledonia came to an accord with, as per the Nouméa Accord. It's history replaying itself. So like I said earlier on, it generally highlights France's inability to hold peace talks or the pathway forward for Kanaki New Caledonia. Thus, as per our statement, we're being calling on that we need neutral parties. We need a high eminence group of neutral people to facilitate the peace talks between Kanaks and France.
So this eminent persons group, to be drawn from who? From where?
Well, the UNC24 committee meets next week, where we are calling on the UN to initiate a high eminence persons, but this to facilitate this together with the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat, have independent Pacific leaders as well as world leaders intervene and facilitate peace talks between both the Kanak pro-independence leaders and, of course, Macron and his administration.
So you would be looking for the eminent persons group perhaps to be centrally involved in drawing up a new accord to replace the Nouméa Accord?
Well, I think the Nouméa Accord, as per the Nouméa Accord, the Kanaks have been trying to negotiate the next face post the referendum. And I think this has sparked the current situation. So the civil society called very much support concerns on ground who are willing, who are asking for experts or neutral persons from the region and internationally to intervene. And this could help facilitate a path forward between both parties. Should it be an accord or should it be the next phase? But we also have to remember New Caledonia Kanaki is on the list of the Committee of 24, which is the UN committee that is listed for decolonization. So how do we progress a territory? I guess the question for France is how does it progress a territory that is listed to be decolonized post these recent events, post the referendum, and it has to be now.
Joey, you are currently at the Pacific Arts Festival in Hawaii. There's a lot of the Pacific there. Have issues like New Caledonia come up?
The opening ceremony, which launches the 2-week-long festival, saw a different turn to it, where we had flags representing Kanaki, New Caledonia, West Papua, flying so high at this opening ceremony. You had the delegation of Guam, who, in their grand entrance, brought the Kanaki flag with them, a sense of solidarity. And when Fiji took the podium, it acknowledged countries and Pacific peoples that are not there to celebrate rightfully. Fiji had acknowledged West Papua, New Caledonia, amongst others. And you can see a sense of regional solidarity and this growing consciousness as to the wider Pacific family when it comes to arts, culture, and our way of being. The opening ceremony was interesting, but it will be interesting to see how the festival pans out and how issues of the territories that are still under colonial administration get featured or get acknowledged within the festival. Be fashion, arts, dance, music. It's going to be a really interesting few weeks.